Hello and welcome back to the top 10 medieval MOCs of the month, the show where we take a look at the best medieval MOCs made by you. If you want to enter your MOC to be in next month's video, please stay tuned for more information at the end of this one. First up, we have the Platinum Dragon Keep by CromulentPoint. This is actually a modification of another MOC by the very talented Brixfan UI, but I thought this one had enough going on differently to warrant including in this video. I really love the changes that he made to the towers, especially this one near the ground floor. It has a super unique and angular shape to it that I think just works really nice here. There's just something about a whitewashed castle that is really appealing, and I wish we saw more people make them in LEGO. Obviously, the new Dragon Knights work fantastically with this color scheme, and I hope to see some more MOCs of them in the coming months. I'll leave a link below to Cromulent's account on Reddit where you can check out some more of his other builds. Next, we have a very unique Cavern and Woodland Forest MOC by Jacek. Above, we have an ancient looking forest with an elf apparently robbing this halfling, and then this is actually where we can see where the cavern connects to the surface. Under this rock here is a slide that goes straight down into the hidden base that the bandits have made inside of the cavern. This whole concept of the MOC is super fun, and it looks great, which is something you always like to see. I think the cavern is a bit better looking than the forest above. The shaping and techniques here just feel a bit more natural for whatever reason, though I do have to say the tree up here looks really good, especially considering that it's mostly using regular old bricks, and it really doesn't use any crazy techniques. I really love how this MOC looks, so thank you so much to Jacek for entering. I really hope to see some more of your builds in the future. Next up, we have a beautiful throne room interior by MinifigmartMocs. I absolutely love the idea behind this build a ton. He's created this box, similar to that new Batman set, that you can open up to reveal a beautifully detailed, opulent looking throne room. It's littered with gold, red, and dark blue, and it just looks really regal. I love all the shelves that he's embedded into the wall, and the throne itself is big and it stands out nicely at the end of the hall. Obviously this interior looks great, but he hasn't forgotten to detail the outside of the box. I love the simple crossed sword design that he's made out here, and while you're not really going to display the set closed up like this, I think the extra thought put into the design is really nice to see. I've said it before, but I am a sucker for interiors, and this one just looks lovely, plain and simple. My one and only critique is that I would like to see a little bit more variation put into the things on display in the background. The shelves would just feel a bit more true to life if they had some, say, like different trinkets next to all the gold goblets and ore. I don't know, it's a fairly small nitpick, but again, this is a great looking build. Please go check out his page on Instagram, linked below. Next up, we've got a Dungeons & Dragons city MOC by Athosus. As viewers of this channel know, I've been on a bit of a medieval city kick recently, and this one is just fueling that fire. I love the variation in buildings that he's made, which is pretty hard to accomplish at this small of a scale. The interiors are simple, but they look really nice, and my favorite of the bunch is definitely this little kitchen with a stove and some other basic furniture. Though I do question why there's a marble bust in here, I don't really get it. Overall, I am a huge fan of what they did with this MOC, and I hope to see them continue to expand and upgrade the city in the future. You can go check out Athosus on Pinterest, where he uploads pictures of all of his MOCs, like this little Lego apocalypse scene right here. Next, we have another medieval city street build, but this time by brickbardtales. This street to me really sells that lively medieval city center that I think a lot of people try to depict in their MOCs. I love the way he's done the stable on the left, where you can see a bit of the hay that's been tracked out onto the street. And then in the middle of the city square, we have a bard performing for a group of peasants that are all dancing and enjoying their day, while next to them is a knight readying her horse for a journey. And finally, we have another knight looking onto the bard's performance with an appropriately picked head to match. It's these little small details in a build that really just add up to create a really convincing scene. It's a hard thing to get right, but I think he's done a fantastic job of it. Oh, and of course, the photography here is really lovely. I especially love this shot of the knight looking down at the bard, and also this shot of the carpenter working on a chair. Really fantastic stuff, and I would recommend you all go check them out on Instagram, where they post a ton of really impressive medieval scenes, just like this one. Next, we have a simple but very well done castle on the shore by Cavern. I adore how the terrain was done in this build. It's super simple, but still very effective while not using a ton of pieces to do it. The slight change in elevation of the grass keeps the build from looking flat, and the visual interest created by the sheer cliff and the ocean guides your eye away from the simple grassy path. And the same is true for the opposite side, where we have some really heavy shrubbery. These two elements being placed on either side of the MOC helps balance out the composition and was clearly well thought out. Also, the path up to the castle is nicely done with that bendy technique used for the fence that is fairly popular nowadays, but for good reason. To me, the weakest part of this build is actually the castle itself. Don't get me wrong, I like the way it looks, but it could definitely use a little bit more depth in the walls. Just something to break up this flat pattern is all you'd really need to drastically improve the look of this castle. Though with that complaint does come a compliment because I love the battlements at the top of the wall that he's made. He's got a ton of barrels and crates up here, and then alongside this is a simple but lovely looking building on top of the wall. Though I do think the real triumph of this castle is the angles that he's captured here. But again, just a little bit more depth in the wall design would go a really long way. Seriously, I would love to see an updated version of this once you get some more parts in your collection, but for the time being, this is a really fantastic looking build. Next, we have a ruined castle simply named Time by Zeczar. Ruined castles are a fairly common build that I see online, but I haven't seen one this good in a while. The techniques that he's used to show the crumbling, decaying wall looks really nice, and the cliff below all of this also just looks great. I love that he's thought to include the roots of the tree below the cliff, and they look really natural as they crawl out of the rocks. But again, back to the ruin, I just love that he's captured the walls here. These small pieces are basically just resting on each other with gravity, but it's really effective, and it's got me wanting to try out this design for myself. My one and only critique of the ruin is that I would like to see some more like olive green plates incorporated into the wall, just to show that nature's retaking the castle, but he's already kind of done that with the trees and other plants growing around it. Around the back of the build, we have a really cool scene here with a deceased soldier with a bed of white flowers that are seemingly growing out of the nutrients from his corpse. It's a morbid but really cool looking scene that reminds me a lot of a short film called Resilience. It's a really cool little short film that you should definitely check out. Also, one last little note about this MOC, I love that he's roughed up and damaged the shield to just show the age and wear on it. It ties back to the name of the MOC being Time and the overall themes of the build. Seriously, this is one of my favorite MOCs I've seen in a minute, and the thought put into the world and story behind it really just makes the piece even better. Shout out to Zeczar for entering, and I can't wait to see what else you come up with in the future. Next, we have Tales of Autumn's Past by Themoblobster. Autumn is probably my favorite or second favorite season, so when I saw this MOC, I knew I had to include it in this list. The build is super impressive, and I can't imagine how finicky it was to figure out that tower design. But the finished look is gorgeous. The subtle sand green accents in it really make the tower pop, but the real star of the show here is all of the terrain around it. The tree here is beautifully sculpted with a ton of small pieces that together make for a very realistic looking model. I think the colors of the build are also worth mentioning here, as the bulk of the terrain is made up of dark tan and dark gray pieces. But the colors that actually pop out to your eye are the dark orange and the medium nougat highlights. This build really shows that understanding color is really important when it comes to MOC building. He hasn't gone overboard with color, but it still reads as vibrant and eye-catching. Seriously, this is a very well done MOC, and my favorite little detail has to be the fallen soldier in the puddle. Please go check out his page on Instagram. There is a ton that you can learn from his builds. Next up, we have the Clover Castle by SV Bricks. This is by far one of the largest castles I've ever showcased in this series, and I think this MOC just speaks for itself. The scale and level of detail here is really impressive, and I just cannot imagine how much it costs to source all those pieces. The walls are highly greebled, and I am a huge fan of all the sand green roofs that he's done. Sand green is a really rare color, and I always love seeing it in builds. I actually don't want to talk too much about this MOC in depth because you should really go check out his video that he made about it that I'll link below. It's really worth checking out. He does a full breakdown of the build, and I think you'll really enjoy it. Now, next up, we have the Modular Medieval Harbor by Slimjimlego. It's hard to believe, but over 1 year ago now, I featured a section of this build in this very series. Now it's finally complete, and I am in love with the finished build. It has so many fun and really well planned out features that you really need to see in video form. It's got a ton of little character moments in every nook and alleyway that I don't really want to spoil for you in this video. But just one example that I love from this MOC is the sea serpent who's attacking the harbor, and it's actually motorized to spin around in a circle while two men try to kill it. Seriously, you have to go check out his page because there are so many more little bits of fun details and motorized elements that are just masterfully done. I'll leave a link to his Instagram below where you can see this mock in its full glory along with all the other great stuff that he posts on there. Now, while some honorable mentions go by on screen, let's talk about how you can enter your mock to be in next month's video. All you have to do to enter is send an email of your mock to this address. Please attach the images of your mock directly to the email, as that maintains the best possible quality. If you don't see your mock here in the honorable mentions, it's probably just because I ran out of time or I couldn't find your images. But just know, I go over every single email I get, but I do apologize that I can't showcase or respond to everyone's email. With that being said, I really appreciate all of you entering your mocks every month, as I have a lot of fun picking out my favorites from the bunch. So again, thank you all so much for entering your mocks. This series would not be possible without you. Keep making awesome mocks, and as always, thank you so much for watching.